तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवे प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So, welcome to the Bhagavad Gita discussion. We are discussing the Sararth Varshani Tika of Srila Vishwanath Thakur and the Rasik Ranjan sub commentary by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So, we have been discussing this last section, the symptoms of a Sita Pragya. Sita Pragya ka bhasha samadhi sasya keshava Sita di kim prabhasita kim asita vrajeta kim. And Lord Krishna first answers ka bhasha. What are the characteristics? He has given up all the desires which are born from mind and is satisfied in the self. Atmani eva atmana tushta. Sita pragya taduchyate. And prabhaseta. Kim prabhaseta means how does he speak? Mentally, or he will speak very neutrally, when miseries come. So these two verses, Dukeshu Anuvignamana and Yes Sarvatra Abhisneyas. Then how does he sit? That means how does he control? So the discussion begins from 2.58, Yada Samharate Chaham, just like the tortoise withdraws its limbs. Yogi can, withdraw his senses from the sense objects. That is by his intelligence. And then, even a sick person, has given up, the sense objects, but the desire doesn't go. That is the difference because Param Drishva Nivartate. And that although he has got that superior vision, this can refer to the Atma, Paramatma, or the beauty of Krishna, but still the senses can drag. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschita indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam mana. So that's what Krishna says. And then in 61, ultimately it concludes that it is only by bhakti. This is the verse which directly speaks about bhakti. Tani sarmani samyamya yukta asita matpara vashe yasya indriyani tasya pragya pratishtita. So this directly speaks about bhakti yoga. So we saw that this is one verse which is indicating bhakti yoga, and we discussed this verse also in the last class. Now, in these two verses, which are the famous verses, ultimately, if one is not able to control the senses, control the mind, and thereby the senses, what happens? What Krishna had spoken in Yatato hi api kaunteya, Purushasya vipaschita indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam mama, that whole sequence of events, how it happens, in these two verses, Krishna speaks. And this is the famous sutra. This is called as the fall down sutra, how the fall down happens. So let us recite this now. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषुपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामाः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते. For a person who meditates on the sense objects. So how it happens? Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschita indriyani pramatini haranti prasamam. How that happens? Because it all begins from contemplation. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa. So when there is contemplation, sangas teshu pajayate. There is attachment. From attachment arises desire. Sangat sanjayate kama. And from desire arises anger. Kamat krodha abhijayate. So here is the fall down sutra. First, it all begins with contemplation. Let me just consider this for a moment. Let me consider it. And then there is Attachment. Oh, I like it. And then lust is what? The feelings become stronger and the voice also changes. I want it at all cost. Then no, you cannot get it. Then the tone changes into anger, krodh. Who can stop me from getting it? You know. So how the sequence is, and then there is some moha, confusion about what is good and bad. Smriti Vibrama means forgetfulness of good and bad, of what is right and what is wrong. Buddhi Nasha means mistaking the bad to be good. And then there is fall down. So it all begins with the contemplation. So Krishna is telling right at the contemplation stage, one should nip the bud, nip it from the bud, they say, or from the root, you know, you know, you have to cut it at the beginning only. So initially in the contemplation stage and attachment, I like it. It is easy. Even if, in fact, in the at the contemplation stage only, if you can cut it, then it becomes very easy. But once it goes to attachment, it becomes difficult. And once it goes to lust and anger, then it becomes all the more difficult. And then, further going through these stages, it's like a natural flow happening. So that's why nipping it from the bud is, contemplation only at the stage of contemplation or attachment in one sense. But once it goes ahead, it can be controlled, but it becomes very, very difficult. So a lot can be spoken on this verse, but I'll just stick to, you know, uh, what Vishnu Chakra Thakur has to say. But this was a very important concept, so I just brought it out. Just like, you have been, working on, let me not eat sweets. Because first of all, you have health issues, doctor has told not to eat sweets. And then what happens is that, you come in the kitchen and your mother is preparing gulab jamuns, which is your favorite. And then you say, let me see it, let me see, I'm not going to eat, but let me at least see. So you go inside and see, and oh, let me touch it. These gulab jamuns are really nice. I like it. It comes to attachment, Oh, I'll just touch it. I'm not going to eat it. I'm just going to touch it. And when you touch the texture, so all the senses are, involved. The eyes is seeing, the touch, the sense of touch is there. And then, you come up with an idea. Anyway, I'm not supposed to eat sweets, but, I can just keep it on my tongue and, see how it feels. I'll not eat it. And ultimately, you put it on your tongue and then you swallow it. And then you say, oh, giving up sweets is so difficult, So, like that, all these phases, there's a gradual succession which is happening, and it is subtle to decipher. Once you go into these stages, and to come back also is very difficult. Of course, you can come back even here also, but it becomes more and more difficult. But that's why at contemplation only one should work. The Sthitapragya controls also the mind. This indeed is the cause of control of the senses. If one does not have control of the mind at all, please hear the result. So, what is the result? These two sutras, these two verses speak. A person who thinks of the sense objects develops attachment to them. By that attachment, he develops strong desire for those objects. Contemplation. Oh, let me consider this. Let me see this, From desire, anger develops due to obstruction of fulfill his desire caused by someone or something. So here also it's a very important point to be noted. Sometimes, ah, here's a very important point. Kindly note this. Suppose the desire is, fulfilled and not fulfilled. So if it is fulfilled, then there is deeper attachment which comes, and there is entanglement, deeper entanglement. But when the desire is not fulfilled, there is frustration. And sometimes we might seem that, array, this situation uh, is not so good. It is not so good, you might feel. Oh, oh, oh. I don't know how it went. Oh, wait. So I was here drawing. So the desire can be fulfilled or not fulfilled. So there is anger or frustration. Frustration is also a different emotion or a emotion of. It's very similar. Frustration. Frustration. Then there is deeper attachment, and then there is deeper entanglement. And sometimes we feel this situation is, not so good for us whenever. But this you feel, when the desire is fulfilled, you feel elated. But actually, this is more binding for one, and he's more gliding down. In fact, so in one sense, this is sometimes easy to realize once you're caught up. But when you're in this situation, you don't realize, Array, if it had been fulfilled that desire, it would have been so nice. But this is, so this is how, subtle this works. Okay, so that's it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, others on the path of Vaidhi Bhakti practice the yoga of Falgu Vairagya, a type of false renunciation. The Falgu is a river which appears to be dry, but a current of water flows just beneath the surface. Although continuously practicing this false detachment, when one meditates on objects of sense gratification, attachment develops, which is followed by lust and then anger. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, again, I told you his whole discussion in this Sthita Pragya is, he's discussing Vaidhi and Raga paths. So, others on the path of Vaidhi Bhakti practice the yoga of Falgu Vairagya. They are on the path of Vaidhi Bhakti, but they practice Vairagya, which is not born out of Bhakti. Externally, they show that, it is sincerity to show that, when sweets are offered to you, you like sweets, please give, you should say, but, no, no, let me show that I'm a renounced person. No, I don't take sweets. So, like that, this is Falgu Vairagya. Hmm. They do this false attachment, but when they go back, after the meal is over, because they have been meditating, Array, I should have asked the sweet, but how do I ask, because, what will they think, all that they think, and then you go back to the ashram and then eat pop a lot of sweets. Engage more in sense gratification and more deeper attachments. So like that, it can happen. That's the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making. Now, second in the verses series, Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibrama, smriti vamshat buddhinasho, buddhinashat pranashrati. From anger arises bewilderment. So when one is anger, he becomes blind. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Moha means illusion. Sammoha means samyak rupena moha. From bewilderment comes loss of memory. Sammoha smriti vibrama. Smriti also refers to the Smriti Shastras or the injunctions or the memory. Both it can refer, but Vishwanath Chakravarti takes the Smriti Shastras of what is right and what is wrong given in the Smriti text. From loss of memory comes loss of intelligence. Smriti Bramshat Buddhi Nasho. From loss of intelligence, one becomes completely destroyed. Buddhi Nashat Pranashati. Pranashati. You know, I heard this is a true story of one of our devotee in Bombay told us that their neighbors were both husband and wife, very educated MBAs working in multinational companies. They had a Very newborn kid also, just 1 year or 1.5 year, I think. And the husband had come back. It was a holiday and he wanted to watch TV. The wife wanted to watch some other serial. So there was a clash, attachment. And then there was a fight. And in that anger in the fight, the husband, you know, he did not know what to do. He took the kid and just threw it from the window. And then the wife was in a state of shock. She just went running down. And then the husband, he did not realize what he had done. He did not realize what that object was. It was his own son. What was his relation? And then suddenly he also jumped and died, committed suicide. The kid also died. The husband died. So this is how, you know, and every day you can see this today in the news. And especially people are losing their lives just for, getting their pictures, selfie pictures on the mobile. Many times, many videos you must have heard, how on the river bank when the water is flowing heavy and they're taking pictures and they're taken, driven away. Crazy this is. Just that attachment, absorption in the bodily consciousness. So this is how it is. So we have to be very, very careful. From anger develops absence of discrimination of what should be done and what should not be done. Sammoha. From bewilderment develops loss of remembrance of one's own benefit derived from the instructions of the scriptures. Vritti Vibrama. From that comes destruction of the resolve for spiritual practices. Buddhi Nasha. Then one falls into the hole of samsara. Bhaktivinoda Thakur again goes to his discussion on Vaidhi. In many instances, Vaidhi bhaktas who practice Falgu Vairagya succumb to this unfortunate progression. Therefore, this type of yoga is full of various obstacles. Practicing Varga Vairagya in the path of Vaidhi. Okay, so now from this verse onwards till the end is the last question's answer, that is Kim Brajet. Ragadvesha vimuktestu Vishayan indriyeshcharan Atmavasher vide atma prasadam madhigacchati. One whose mind is submissive, vide atma, who engages in the sense objects with the senses. Vishayan indriyashcharan. Indriya charan, like go charan we say, na? The cows do charan of grass. So the indriyas go to do charan of the sense objects. Freed from attachment and repulsion, raga dvesha vimuktestu. Atmavasher, under the control of the mind. That means one whose mind is controlled or submissive and he engages the senses in the sense objects, but he is not attached nor averse. And his mind is under control, attains peace. Prasadam the gachati. Vaishnav. This verse answers the question, how does the Sita Pragya go? Vrajeta Kim. That means how does he engages the senses in, when the sense objects come to him or he engages the senses in the sense objects. The Lord explains that it is not fault to accept the object of the senses if it is done with controlled senses, with the absence of attachment of the objects in the mind. So most important is Vasheyasya Indriyani, controlled senses, and there is no raga and dvesh. There is absence of attachment for the objects in the mind. According to Amar Kosha, Vidheya means submissive, situated in words, compliant, controlled, well-behaved, polite, and equal. So Vishwanath Thakur takes the words meaning submissive, or you can take control also. One whose mind, Atma, is submissive to the instructions, Videya Atma, who contacts the objects with senses controlled by the mind, senses devoid of attachment to being, attains peace, prasadam. So he is not agitated. Contacting the sense objects is not a fault. Rather, it is a good quality for one who does so with control. So those who have control, it is a good quality. In other words, for a Sita Pragya, accepting the renunciation of the enjoyment of objects, either by withdrawal of the senses, asana, kimasit, or by engaging the senses, vrajana, is beneficial. So, a Sthita Pragya, he knows when to withdraw the senses and when to engage the senses because his mind is controlled. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this is Yukta Vairagya. Thus, practicing Yukta Vairagya by engaging the senses and their objects in the service of the Lord, one should abandon all attachment and aversion by means of fixed intelligence. So, I was mentioning that this Yukta Vairagya principle is very, very lofty and profound and deep principle. Anasakta Vishayan, you should first be completely detached. In the name of Yukta Vairagya, we are attached to facilities and we use the facilities and tell, oh, this is Yukta Vairagya. But we are attached to the facilities, but we should be anasakta. Then only it is possible. In other words, even though one's senses roam throughout the respective objects of enjoyment, due to being subordinate to the Atma, he does not become attached. Such an independent person becomes free from the tugging of the senses, attains joyful. So there is no tug of war going on internally between him. Now, previous verse was mentioned that he attains, prasadam adhikachati. That means he becomes joyful. Then what happens? Prasade sarva dukkhana hanirasyupajayate prasanna chetaso hi ashu buddhi parayavatishtate. From this peace, prasade here doesn't refer to the Mahaprasad. Prasad here means peace or mercy. Arises, upajayate, destruction of all distress. Asya sarva dukkhanam hani. Hani means to destroy. And what? All distress. Quickly, Ashu, the intelligence of the peaceful minded people, prasanna cheta buddhi, becomes completely fixed. Parava, paraya avatishtate. This is a beautiful verse. Sarva dukkhanam hani. Sarva dukkhanam means destruction of cravings for material enjoyment. So, if that craving is there, when there is no craving only, that means, there's no desire. That means this is speaking about not Dhamma. Dhamma is sense control, but Shama is mind control. In the mind, the mind is peaceful. There is no desire only to enjoy. So, there is no craving for material enjoyment. That is prasade sarva dukkhanam hanir asya upajayate. So, Srila Jiva Goswami mentions, he says, dukkam kama sukha upeksha. What is the root of dukkha? It is the desire, sukha upeksha, that if I have this object, I will become happy. And that is the root of your dukkha. Like yehi samsparshaja bhoga, dukkha yona evate, as Krishna says. Prashanna cheta also means realization of our Satchidananda nature. The intelligence is fixed in its desired goal completely. Pari avatishtate. All distress is destroyed. But because of no desire for enjoying the objects, the person accepting necessary objects of the senses for his arrival has tranquility. So here, why all distress is destroyed? Because there is no desire for enjoying the objects only. As long as that craving is there, then you cannot be peaceful or you cannot be prasanna cheta. He has a peaceful consciousness, prasanna cheta, just because of bhakti. So directly Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying because of bhakti. The first canto of the Bhagavatam states that without bhakti, one cannot have a peaceful mind. So this is evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata. Bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. And this is also, even Vyasdev was not, experiencing joy after even compiling Vedanta Sutra because he had not compiled exclusively a scripture glorifying bhakti. Vyasdev, even though writing the Vedanta Sutra, did not have happiness of mind, but he gained peace of heart through bhakti taught by Narad. So here, mark this, and we will take up in the next verse. There is a difference between the happiness of the mind and the peace of the heart. So we'll bring out this difference. नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्ते अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम. For a person with uncontrolled mind, न च अयुक्तस्य भावना. Here bhavana means the mind, because emotions, ayuktasya, uncontrolled. There is no intelligence fixed on the soul. Nasti buddhi ayuktasya. And no meditation on the Paramatma. Na cha abhavayata. Without meditation, he has no peace. Na cha bhavatah shanti. Without peace, where is bliss? Ashantasya kuta sukham. Sukham means here it is not material happiness, it is transcendental happiness. So, as mentioning that there is a peace of mind and there is a peace of heart. What is a peace of mind? Absence of agitating thoughts and desires. uh, so many people, when they come to temple, na, oh, idhar bahut shant lagta hai, because, at least their material desires, they are little now, they are settled for some time when they come to the temple. When they go out again, it starts harassing them. So they feel peace of mind when they come to the temple. When else do you feel peace of mind? When any other instances where you feel peace of mind? Anyone would like to tell? Peace of mind. I gave the example, even though there are a lot of desires, but coming to a temple, no, you feel either what shanti hai, It's not that the desires are gone, but actually they are little, at least for some time they are pacified. When else you feel like this? What are the other instances? Sri Lalita Mataji, yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. When we hear, I mean, when I hear Krishna Katha, then when I'm focused on it, I don't think about anything else.
Uh, I want a material example. You're hearing Krishna Katha, that's directly bliss of bhakti you're experiencing. Yeah, you're right, but I want some, just like I told, a materialist person, who's having a lot of desires, when he just comes to the temple, he feels, oh, there's peace. I feel shanti here, When else you
Hearing the music also sometimes gives
hearing
peace.
music? When you sleep, you know, you're peaceful for some time because the desires are not troubling you. But what is peace of heart, Peace of heart is connection of the soul with Krishna through love that offers shelter to the soul. Just like a child, the mother, the child is sleeping and the child is blissfully sleeping because the mother has put a nice shawl covering him and caressing him, and because the child has the connection with the mother, which is a loving relationship, the child is peaceful. So that is peace of heart. So peace of heart is a real connection of the soul with Krishna through love that offers shelter to the soul. So that's the difference between the peace of the mind and the peace of the heart. Krishna makes his statement clear by stating the effects of the opposite condition. So what is the opposite condition? If there is no connecting with him, then there is no question of happiness. So the opposite condition is mentioned. For one who has not controlled the mind, ayuktasya, there is no intelligence, no pragya fixed on the soul. For one who has one who for one who not having such pragya arising from controlled mind, meditation on the Supreme Lord, bhavana, also is not possible. Not performing meditation, abhavayata, he does not have peace. The cessation of agitation from sense objects. Indriya prabhava, like the waves of the ocean, there's no cessation only. This person without peace does not have bliss, sukham from the soul. So I mentioned this is spiritual happiness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, just see those who do not meditate on Bhagwan, how will they attain peace? Then how can they who have no peace have real happiness? For such person disconnected from my service, such intelligence and meditation on Bhagwan, the topmost nectar, is impossible. Okay. Text 67. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano anuvidyate tadasya harati pragyam vayurnavam ivambasi. One of the moving senses, charatam indriyanam, which the mind follows, yad mana anu vidhiyate, steals away the intelligence, tadasya harati pragyam, as a wind moves a boat on the water. Vayur navam ivambasi. So in 2.59, yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschita indriyani pramatini haranti prasabhamamana. There, the previous verse spoke about how the tortoise withdraws his limbs from, inside the shell. How a yogi withdraws the senses from the sense object. So sense control is spoken, and but the senses drag the mind. But here, what is mentioned, how the mind drags the intelligence. When the mind focuses on one of the senses, the mind pulls the intelligence. So that is what is being mentioned. And the example is Vayur Navam Imambasi. So this example, what has been given, what is the significance of this boat wind analogy is intrinsically vulnerable situation. We are in this material world in a very, very vulnerable situation. Sometimes you go for a picnic to, Shimla or whatever, and suddenly there is a storm and you're caught. When what can happen, you cannot say. So similarly, especially in the path of spirituality, we are always vulnerable to Maya. When Maya can immediately attack, we just cannot say. That's why the significance one is that when you're in the ocean, when a sudden wave will come and rock your boat, we cannot say. That's why it's an intrinsically vulnerable situation. One. Secondly, the higher force wind overpowers us, the boat. And there is a higher force, which is the Vedic literature, that can help us also. So we should take help of that Vedic literature. This verse examines the person with no intelligence due to lack of control of the mind. Ayuktasya buddhi na asi. So that ayuktasya buddhi is not there. What happens? Vayurnavam imambasi, which was mentioned in the previous verse. Krishna, what is his situation, is expressing in this verse, described in the previous verse. Among all the senses moving towards their respective sense objects, the mind follows after one sense. Because his ayukta, his mind is not controlled. So one of the senses will fix on particular sense object. Then what happens? In this way, person follows each of the senses. Such a mind takes away the intelligence of pragya of a person, just as unfavorable wind takes a boat off the course, which is being stirred somewhere on the water. It takes you off the course. And then he concludes, Tasmadyasya mahabhavo nigritani sarvasha indriyani indriyarthebhya thasya pragya pratishtita. So tasmad means he's now concluding the discussion. What happened now? Why it's not writing? Yeah, tasmad means he's concluding. Yasya nigritani means one should. Sarvasha means, sarvasha has meaning, two meanings. One is all the senses. One should control all the senses, not even one sense should be. And then from all sides, sarvasha. He who completely restricts, tasmad yasya nikritani sarvasha, the senses, indriyani, from sense objects by fixing the mind on me. Indriyartabhya, O mighty armed one, mahabhavo, is fixed in pragya, is fixed in pragya. Is, I think, has an extra word has come up here. I don't know how. Is fixed in pragya. He who controls his mind restricts his senses from sense objects. He is fixed in intelligence. O mighty armed one, Mahabhavu, just as you control your enemies, Mahabhavu means with his mighty arms you control your enemies. Now you should also control your mind. Okay, till here, do you have any questions? Now, the last three verses 69, 70, 71, 72, I will take up just after this. No, up till here, if you have any questions, any clarifications. One hand has been raised. Bir Krish Prabhuji, yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhu, this contemplation
Mhm.
and our vasanas, how they are linked, Prabhu? I mean, in context
See,
of when we say that by chanting Cheto Dharma Margina happens, and our vasanas get spiritualized in the sense.
see,
So
I got a question. Basically, the desires can come from within or without. That means the desires can come based on seeing some sense objects. So from outside, they can come inside our mind, or the desires come from inside. They are there in the vasanas, and without any external stimulus, they can pop in. Both ways it can happen. Now, when they come, now how do you deal? Now, this is not in our control. You know especially when it comes from inside. That is not in our control. But the jiva has the freedom. How will he deal? Whether he'll contemplate on it, and when he starts contemplating, that that sutra will follow. Dhyayato vishayan pumsan sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodh. That's what happens. And when one contemplates, then it's so subtle and so fast, the attachment and the anger and the bewilderment, or if there's no anger, also the bewilderment, is so subtle, the pathway is that, one doesn't know at which stage he is. So that is why the acharyas mentioned that, at the nip, at the root only one should cut it. Nip it, contemplation. So that is why Smriti, Shastras are called as Smriti, because by studying Shastra, by repeatedly hearing and by remembering, I did not want to mention, because again, for each verse, we can discuss 1 hour, then, we'll not be able to complete the syllabus. I just wanted to restrict that Ajamil saw that scene. It was not in his control, you know, and seeing that also, he was horrified in one sense. And then he picked up the wood and he was going back. And when he was going back, that scene started playing in his mind. The contemplation started. Now, Ajamil, one thing the Acharya says, that he should have remembered the lotus feet of the Lord, Smaran, by which, he could remember the Lord, he could, wipe out those images. But then, because he did not take shelter of the Lord at that point and remember the Lord through Smaran, Krishna Smaran, so that contemplation, loop went on, and from there, it went to attachment, and, in fulfilling his desire, the desire got fulfilled, and it led to a sinful life. So, like that, that is how the sequence happens. Is it clear, Prabhu?
yes, yes, Prabhu. And Prabhu, one more point, Prabhu.
Mhm.
This when we say mind control and when we say mind engagement. So, Prabhu, with respect to sadhana bhakti, I mean, if we are practicing mind control, then it will be a limb of jnana and it will be a jnana avarana. So, rather than controlling mind, we are supposed to engage our mind in devotional activities. That way, I think we should go.
Now, come again. What exactly you're trying to say? Tell me.
I'm trying to say, Prabhu, see, mind control is typically a limb of jnana, mind
Okay.
control.
Okay.
And if we practice too much on controlling the mind, then it will become a jnana avarana na, in our practice of sadhana bhakti. I mean,
Okay.
from point of pure
So,
devotional
yeah,
service.
this, let me make it a point that although, Rup Goswami makes this very clear in the Nectar of Instructions, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, you know, that controlling the urges of the mind, urges of the speech, urges of the, all the senses, he's speaking Jiva and all. Although in the path of Jnana and Ashtanga, there is control of the senses, but, in the path of Bhakti, it's direct engagement in Shravanam Kirtam. But these Vegas, if the senses are not controlled, they can become an obstacle in our engagement of the Angas. So, in Sharnagati, there is a principle Anukulasya Sankalpa, Pratikulasya Varjanam. So, because this sense control is Anukul to Bhakti, that's why we need to do. And yes, more than emphasizing on uh, the negation part of the jnanis of controlling just the senses and no engagement of the senses. The senses require engagement. So our path is engage the senses, but the senses are not controlled, they will, go astray. So that is why I mentioned Tani Sarvani Sanyamya Yukta Asita Matapara Vashayasya. First, to engage the senses should get engaged. Na? And the children,
Right.
you want to make them read and write, but they want to play. So to get them to write only is the difficult thing. So the mind to get to engage in devotional service is difficult. And why? Because the mind is not controlled. Secondly, when the senses are completely controlled by the mind, Vashayasyandrani, then there is, engagement in one sense. There is a controlled engagement. Now, again, I'll give the example of the horse. Now, the horses are supposed to be, driven by the charioteer in a particular direction, but the horses are going in different direction. So, first is, nigra. Nigra means to, sanyam, to control the horses, get them back from the different directions. Now, once you get them back and you're holding them, then you have to let them in the right direction. And while
Right.
they are in the right direction, that time also you need to keep control over them. you know you get this point.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
Vashay
Thank
yes
you.
Indrayani, like that it is.
Thank you.
So it is an art which comes with a lot of practice.
Thank
Okay.
you, bro. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Question after question. Sumit Prabhuji, I will take it up just when I finish this discussion. Let's finish today because I want to finish the second chapter, and then any questions we'll take it up again. Okay, now Krishna speaks about how a self-controlled person and one is not controlled, their activities are like day and night. Ya nisha sarva bhutana tasyam jagarati sanyame yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune. So here please mark, sometimes, while reciting we jagarati it is here. Jagarti and jagrati. No, see, Gar it is and Gra. So in Sanskrit, if you see the complete difference, you'll come to know. 2.69. Jagarati and Jagrati. You see, these two words, there is a sit. Is wakeful or awake, जागृति करते हैं ऐसा like that. So there is a difference, and again I don't know Sanskrit how this is all constructed from the root words, but this is very important for just to know, mention this point. The Sthapragya is awake. Sanmimi jagarati tasyam. In the night when all living entities sleep. So it's not that literally, in the night, Sthita Pragya is awake. He doesn't sleep, when all living entities sleep. That's not the literally meaning to be taken here. Again, you cannot take the Mukhya Vritti meaning, the Gavana Vritti, you have to take Lakshana Vritti. The night of all observant Sthita Pragya, Pashyato Mune Nisha. is a time during which all living entities are awake. Sa yasyam jagarti bhutani. Awake again here doesn't mean sleep and awake, doesn't mean the literal meaning. And night and day also doesn't mean the literally. So what here it is mentioning, day is sphere of activity and night is also the sphere of inactivity. So what is the day for sense gratifier? One who has not controlled his senses, you know, it's a day for him. He's awake in sense gratification. That is the night for spiritualist because he's not active in sense gratification. It's night for spiritualist. So this person is engaged in sense gratificatory activities. And what is the night for sense gratifier? That means he is not engaged in enlightenment. He's not engaged in the process of buddhi yoga or meditation. You know, that is where he's engaged. It's a day for him. It's a day for spiritualist. That is, he's engaged in spiritual activities. So there is always this constant tug of war between the spiritualist and the materialist. The materialists see the spiritualist, array, they are wasting their life. What they're doing, they're not enjoying. The spiritualists see the materialist, oh, they are wasting their life in sense gratification. They are going to only suffer. They don't know the bliss of the Atma. So, like that, it is for both. The Siddha Pragya is able to control his senses very naturally. There are two types of intelligence, that directed towards soul and that directed towards matter. So, Buddhi is directed inwards to the soul, or Buddhi which is directed towards the outward matter, senses, mind, senses, sense objects. The intelligence directed towards the soul is night for all other entities. So here he is directed inwards, but it is what? Night for them. Just as in the night, people sleeping do not know what is happening at that time. So all living entities do not know the things which are being perceived by the intelligence directed towards the soul. So they cannot know the bliss of the Atma because they are sleeping. It's night for them. But during that night, the Sita Pragya or Sanyami, controlling senses, is awake, not sleeping. He's awake in self-realization. In other words, he directly realizes the bliss from fixing his intelligence on the soul. When the living entities are awake, when they're awake with intelligence directed towards material sense objects, they realize directly the happiness, lamentation, and bewilderment of those sense objects upon which their intelligence is fixed. They are not sleeping, they are awake and they are experiencing all this dukkha, sukha. But that is the night for Muni. For the Muni, it is sphere of inactivity. He is not engaged his intelligence in the outer world. The Siddha Pragya who does not experience fixing his intelligence on those objects at all. But he does see those objects. He sees, but he doesn't engage. He looks upon Pashyata, all those sense objects which give happiness and distress to people bound in samsara with disinterest. He's not engaged in sense enjoyment. This means that he accepts the required sense objects for his survival without being affected. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings out the same from Vishnu Chakra Thakur's commentary only. O Arjuna, intelligence is of two types. One directed inwards towards the Atma, while the other is directed outwards towards material enjoyment. The first type of intelligence is like night for the majority of the ordinary conditioned souls bewildered by sensualism. That means sense enjoyment. Most of the jivas are sleeping in this darkness, thus they cannot obtain knowledge about the goal of human life. However, the saintly persons of fixed intelligence are awake to this darkness and are directly experiencing the bliss of the soul, which is like day to the saintly persons. That's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur further little clarifies. The second type is found in the jivas whose intelligence is fixed upon the objects of the senses and who are bewildered by matter. They are awake and directly experiencing lamentation and misery, while for the saintly devotees, this is like night. Devotees are indifferent to sense objects, which bring happiness and suffering to the souls who are bound within the material existence. Devotees accept sense objects appropriately, yukta vairagya, and without attachment. Okay, now what is the consciousness of such a Sthitapragya person is mentioned in this beautiful verse. Apuryamanam achalam pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvad tadvad kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. Very nice term, kama kami. That means when the desire comes, kama, the person becomes kami, kama kami. Just as the rivers enter the ocean, yadvat apa pravishanti samudram, which has fixed banks, achala pratishtam, and is never quite full, apuryamanam. So the objects of enjoyment enter into the sthita pragya, tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve, but he remains peaceful. Sa shanti mapnoti. This is not so for the desirer of those objects. Na kama kami. So what is the significance of this ocean and puddle? When rivers enter, ocean is undisturbed, whereas a puddle, it becomes disrupted. So one whose senses are not controlled, the sense objects when they enter, they become disrupted. But because his consciousness is sita pragya, his consciousness is filled with ocean of Krishna, even when the sense objects he accepts, he is not disturbed. Why? Because there's abundant inner happiness coming from spiritual Atma or Bhakti. And there is here scant inner happiness. So, Bhakti transforms our heart from a puddle to an ocean, not possible by human effort, but only by grace. During the transformation sadhaka stage, what keeps us on the spiritual platform is our buddhi. So, in the sadhana stage, we should use our buddhi, and that's why this is buddhi yoga. The second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter is all very important for us, sadhaka stage. After the transformation in the siddha stage, what keeps us on the spiritual platform is our preeti, because we have established our relationship with Krishna and we are experiencing reciprocation. So that's why, what keeps us on the spiritual platform is our preeti with the Lord. This verse describes the Sthitapragya's condition of not being affected or agitated when he accepts the sense objects. Just as in the rainy season, rivers, apa, here and there enter into the ocean, almost filling up it. Means almost. Apuryamanam mentioned. But not being able to completely fill it up, not being able to go beyond the shore. Achala pratishtam. In a similar manner, the objects of sense enjoyment, kama, come to the Sthita Pragya for his enjoyment, but cannot disturb him. Once, a group from the Western world, foreign devotees had come to visit India to a holy place. And one of the sannyasi, who's very well known, he gave a talk and many were inspired. I'm just telling you to, understand what, this verse means. This I heard personally, the story. It's a true story. And then, one of the ladies was very inspired by the talk of the Swami. And she went and knocked the door of the sannyasi, to ask some questions, And she was inspired. She was feeling happy hearing the philosophical talk. So she knocked and said that, can I disturb you? So the sannyasi said, you cannot disturb me, but you can ask questions. I hope you got, a very humorous and very deep and profound answer, You cannot disturb me, but you can ask questions. Just as whether the rivers enter or do not enter the ocean is not disturbed at all. The Sthita Pragya Saha remains undisturbed whether he gets objects of enjoyment or he attains the stage of Gyan, Shantim. So Shantim means completely when the subtle body is pure and there is no material desires. So this is the Sthita Pragya stage or the Jnana Nishta stage. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, lusty person can never achieve peacefulness. Even though many rivers enter into the ocean, which is always full, the ocean never becomes disturbed. In the same way, even though all the desires enter into the person of fixed intelligence, they are unable to disturb him. Therefore, he alone can achieve peace. विहाय कामान्य सर्वान् पुमां चरति निःस्पृह निर्ममो निरहंकार स शांतिम अधिगच्छति. He who gives up all objects of enjoyment. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan. Vihaya means to give up. Kaman, desires. Yah sarvan, everything. But carries out the actions without desires for them. Pumam sharati nispruha. But he does actions without any desires. Being devoid of possessiveness and ego. Nirmama, nirhankara. Attains peace. Gyan, it is shanti madhigachati. This verse describes a person who does not enjoy the sense objects at all because he has no faith in them. He is devoid of possessiveness and ego regarding his body and objects related to the body. He attains the stage of jnana, shanti. Now, this will become, the crux of the third chapter question of Arjuna. Eisha brahmi sthiti partha nainam prapya vimoyati sthitva syamante kalepi brahma nirvanam richati. O son of Partha, this is the situation of attaining Brahman. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. Attaining that state, Enam Prapya, one is not bewildered, na vimohiti, and attains Brahma Nirvan. Richati Brahma Nirvan, even at the time of death. Antakale Stityasyam api. So here, this term Brahmi, actually, there are two verses or two terms in the Bhagavad Gita which directly are related to Radharani. One is this Brahmi, and second is uh, Mahatmanastu Mahampartha Daivim Prakriti Mashita. Daivim is again striling, this is Prakriti. Antakara, this is Antaranga Shakti. So in Sanskrit, there is Brahma, Brahman, and there's Brahmi. So Brahma means, it is masculine. Brahman is neuter gender, and Brahmi is feminine. So it is not referring to the, Brahma Nirvanam, which is quite famous with the Buddhists or the monoist, and not the monist also, it is Buddhist. So Prabhupada in his purport makes that all what Brahma Nirvan means actually being situated in the spiritual atmosphere, that is in the spiritual world. And that is clear from the term Brahmi, because it is Antaranga Shakti in one sense. Of course, all that explanation is not there in Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary, but I just wanted to mention here. When we study the Prabhupada's commentary, he gives a very elaborate commentary and explains this, because he knows that Prabhupada's main goal is Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharini. So he hammers a lot there. But I just wanted to explain. It refers to actually one who attains the spiritual atmosphere. That is the Antaranga Shakti of the Lord. And that is also called as Brahma Nirvanam. O son of Pratha, this is a situation of attaining Brahman. Attaining that, one is not bewildered and attains Brahma Nirvanam even at the time of death. This verse concludes the topic. Brahmi means that which gives attainment of Brahman. Even one at the point of death, Antakalepi, what to speak of one of young age, by this practice attains Brahma Nirvana. Having presented clearly Gyan and Karma and indirectly Bhakti. Indirectly Bhakti. Vishnu Chakra Thakur is saying indirectly Bhakti. That indirectly Bhakti refers to Bhagavad Gita 2.61. But Prabhupada, in the entire Sthita Pragya section, for all the solution, he directly gives Bhakti Yoga only. From starting only, he gives Bhakti Yoga. This chapter is called the Sutra, abbreviated form of the Gita. So that's why contents of the Gita summarized like that. This is the commentary of the second chapter of the Gita for the joy of the devotee's mind, following after the great devotees. Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In conclusion, it is said that even if at the time of death one becomes situated in Brahma, he achieves liberation or Brahma Nirvana, then what to speak of someone who attains the state in childhood? So that completes the discussion on the Sthita Pragya. So I'll stop. So tomorrow onwards, we will begin with the third chapter, which is very interesting. Third chapter and the fifth chapter are the most philosophical and technical and not easy to follow. So we'll start that tomorrow. So now any questions? Sumit Prabhu had one question. We'll take that first. Any other questions? You can raise your hand. Sumit Prabhuji, yes.
Yes, Prabhuji, whatever we learnt about the qualities of the person who is very composed. So most of the times, once we have read Bhagavad Gita once or twice, and we listen to the devotees, so we know by theoretical means, but still, when that situation arises, so our mind gets bewildered, and it gets driven by the senses.
Mm.
So what can be done on this? So I the practice has to be done, but what are your thoughts on this?
We have to simply understand that you're not Sitapragya. Simple.
Uh, yeah,
That's it. Because the pragya is not fixed in the self. We are not self-realized. That's the
yeah,
point. So we have to work on it.
to
You
work.
know, you know, still the bhakti has not really got filled up in our consciousness. So we have to do more hearing, more chanting, more Krishna Katha, more contemplation on the Shastra, more Shastra Adhyay, and keep on filling the consciousness, because there is so much contamination within,
Mm,
and where our consciousness is like a puddle, it gets disturbed.
mm,
So you have to fill our ears day and night with Krishna Katha. And years together, when you do like that, then slowly, slowly the change starts happening. Okay.
yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Anyone else has? Even for me also, it is the same. Don't worry. Huh? Yes, Bir Kashmuji. Yeah.
2.7 Brahmin term, it refers
Can you speak a little loudly because the audio is very less. Hari bol.
Hare Krishna,
Hari
Prabhu.
bol.
Now
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is.
Hmm.
Prabhu, this in verse 2.72 Brahmi term,
Hmm.
this refers to Jnana Yoga and Bhakti. I mean, all three paths refer to, or it is.
Brahmi, that's what the deeper term it directly refers to, entering the spiritual world, you know. So that's why
Mm,
Prabhupada, I'm not going into the purport because that will take a long time and anyway we are supposed to discuss. Prabhupada makes it very clear what is nirvanam, spiritual life. Spiritual life means there is a spiritual body and there is a spiritual world, you know. So, like that, there's a deeper understanding. So, I mentioned that, So, and it also refers to that when you come to the Brahman platform, then bhakti begins, na? Then there are activities of the soul. That is devotional service in that sense also. So it's a common denominator, whether it is, for the yogis who are liberated or jnanis or for bhaktas. They have to become, bhaktas also have to become liberated and then the real activities start, like that.
mhm.
Like that.
Basically, it is transcendental platform.
Yeah, transcendental platform.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll stop here. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. So tomorrow we'll begin with the third chapter. Hare Krishna.